Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 12 quarterback start or sit decisions for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into every single matchup from all the games on Sunday slate all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the quarterbacks in every single matchup. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I'd also like to ask that if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the video description. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 12 quarterback start or sit decisions. We begin with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Indianapolis Colts. Now, in this game, I love Carson Wentz. I really believe that last week's game was just the complete and utter opposite game script of a productive game for Carson Wentz, because they just ran a train on the Buffalo Bills, and they just ran the ball basically every single play. Jonathan Taylor had 4 fucking rushing touchdowns. He had 1 receiving touchdown. He took over in that game, and the Bills just could not crawl their way back into that game, to the point where Carson Wentz was going to have to start airing the ball out later in the game. So Jonathan Taylor has a great game. Carson Wentz and Michael Pittman have a dud in that game. But this week, they go up against the Buccaneers, and it's not going to be a knockout punch in the first quarter, right? The game isn't going to be over very early on. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are favored in this game by 3, I understand. But Nick, weren't the Bills favored by like 7 last week? Yeah, I understand. It is entirely possible that the Colts could win this game, but I believe this is not going to be a blowout. The Buccaneers are going to be fighting their way into this game if they get down, and Carson Wentz will be having to throw the ball a lot more. Now, is he a guy that I believe is going to be a top 5 quarterback on the week? No, but it is entirely possible that he finishes as a top 12 quarterback on the week. That's why I like Carson Wentz this week for a bounce-back game up against the Buccaneers, even though the team isn't bouncing back, because they've just wiped the floor with the Buffalo Bills. And what's funny about that is all is forgotten from that game for the Buffalo Bills fans, right? Because they just destroyed the Saints on Thanksgiving. So it is what it is, right, if you're a Bills fan. So the Bucs at the Colts. I like Tampa Bay Tom Brady. He is one of the only quarterbacks in the NFL in terms of fantasy football that is a statue-like quarterback. I understand he got loose last week, ran for like 9 yards. Congratulations, Tom Brady. You still got it in you. Ran like a 4.2 right there. Dude's fast as fuck, Lightning McQueen type of speed. But in reality, he doesn't really run the ball. So he's one of the only statue-like quarterbacks in the NFL that is really good for fantasy football. Because in fantasy football, you just get so much value from a guy running 30, 40, 50 yards a game, potentially running in a touchdown or 2, because it just gives you bonus points, free points for your fantasy quarterback. And that's something that a guy like Tom Brady doesn't do. But a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL can't throw for 4 or 5 touchdowns in any given game, and that is entirely possible this week up against the Indianapolis Colts. I love Tampa Bay Tom Brady in this game. I really do believe this is going to be a high-scoring affair. Next up, we move to the Jets at the Houston Texans, and I like Tyrod Taylor in this matchup. Would I rank him as a top 10 quarterback, a top 12 quarterback? No, but I do recognize that he could easily be a top 15 quarterback on the week going up against the Jumbo Jets defense. Now, I understand that last week Tua Tagovailoa wasn't slinging the pigskin all over the Jets. Obviously had an all-right fantasy game, and the Dolphins won the game, but we did see Tyrod Taylor last week look amazing up against the Tennessee Titans. He does have that rushing upside. Just because he was stabbed by his doctor in the lung last year doesn't mean that he's magically terrible. He's still got it. He can still run the ball. He can still get loose up against the Jumbo Jets, and I think that this is a wet dream matchup for any quarterback, so I'm going to fire up Tyrod Taylor. For the Jets, the Texans defense normally is also a wet dream matchup for a quarterback, but I don't love Zach Wilson. Now, is he a step up or a step down from Joe Flacco, Magic Mike White, Josh Johnson? To be honest with you, I think that they're all very similar. I think Zach Wilson will eventually be a very solid NFL quarterback based upon what I saw at his days in BYU. But right now, for the Jets, he's just not a quarterback that I love. He's coming back off of injury. I just don't expect him to have all that great of a showing this week up against the Houston Texans. But I do still love Elijah Moore this week, because Zach Wilson doesn't have to have this amazing game for Elijah Moore to put up a very solid fantasy performance. Next up, we move to the Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Football Giants. Jalen Hurts could potentially be the quarterback number 1 at the end of the year for fantasy football. It's not because he's slinging the pigskin all game long. It's because of that rushing upside. It's because of that opportunity that this guy could rush for 2 or 3 touchdowns in any given game. And in a majority of leagues, you get 4 points for passing touchdowns, you get 6 points for the rushing touchdowns. So the rushing touchdowns are even better for these quarterbacks. So Jalen Hurts going up against the Giants. I know a lot of people are trying to galaxy brain themselves into thinking the Giants are going to win this game because they're the underdog. They just fired Jason Garrett, and maybe that's better for Daniel Jones. But at the end of the day, I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be laying a pipe to that ass like they are a plumber. I love Jalen Hurts in this matchup. I think he has the potential to be the number 1 quarterback on the week. Daniel Jones, Daniel Fumbles, Danny Dimes, whatever you want to call this guy. He always has this crazy upside because you know that Daniel Jones could go out there and look like Michael Vick and run for literally 90 yards, run in a touchdown. But then there's the other games where instead of Danny Dimes, this amazing version of Daniel Jones, you get the Danny Fumbles where he's running the ball and he fumbles the ball, he's throwing stupid-ass picks. He's like Jameis Winston, but worse, in my opinion. That's basically the Daniel Jones upside and the downside of Daniel Jones. He's a fun quarterback to watch at times, a terrible quarterback to watch at other times, just not a game I love up against the Philadelphia Eagles defense. So Daniel Jones will be sitting on the bench, and I do like Jalen Hurts a lot this week. Next up, we got the Carolina Panthers at my Miami Dolphins. In this game, I like Cam Newton as well as Tua Tagovailoa. Now, as a Dolphins fan, and a lot of people, when talking about this game, they will think that, oh, the Dolphins defense shut down Lamar Jackson. Cam Newton, similar quarterback to Lamar Jackson. Obviously, they are not the same, but the reason why they are being compared in a lot of these situations is because they are both quarterbacks that can run the ball. Now, in the NFL, a lot of quarterbacks can run the football nowadays. That's just how the game has shifted over time. But Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson, somewhat similar, and the Dolphins absolutely obliterated. They destroyed Lamar Jackson. He couldn't do anything a couple of weeks ago in that Thursday Night Football game. But in my opinion, I think there's a big difference between that game, the Thursday Night Football trap game for the Baltimore Ravens, versus this game up against the Panthers. I think that Cam Newton could easily get it done in fantasy football, and he's not going to need to have this amazing passing day for that to happen. As long as he rushes for like 40, 50 yards, as long as he rushes in like 1 touchdown in this game, that is very easy to see when you paint the picture of what is going to happen in this game, Bob Ross style. You can envision Cam Newton having a rushing touchdown. You can envision him busting off a long run that's going to get him a lot of fantasy points. So I do like Cam Newton in this game, so I'm going to start him with that top 5 potential. Tua Tagovailoa, not someone who I'm going to be screaming to the mountaintops, banging the drum aggressively for. I just think Tua Tagovailoa has looked solid this season. He's not going to have Devontae Parker. He's not going to have Will Fuller this week. But the offense, even with Mac Hollins and friends that he's stuck throwing the ball to, and Jalen Waddle, obviously, Mike Lickia, Mike Gesicki, Tua has been just fine. Not a guy that I'm overwhelmingly excited about because I do think that the Panthers defense is underrated. But I do believe that he is worthy of a start. He's probably a top 16-ish quarterback on the week. Next up, we move to the Tennessee Titans at the New England Patriots. And this game just reeks of being a very low-scoring affair between Ryan Tannehill and Mystic Mac Jones. Mac Jones is a very good NFL quarterback. He's good at managing the game. He's good at getting the Patriots to put them in a scenario to win football games. But a lot of the times in terms of fantasy football, that's not what you need. You need a guy that's going to be slinging the pigskin a million times. Mac Jones, also one of those statue-esque quarterbacks, not really going to get out there and try to fucking juke a defender out of his cleats or anything like that. So Mac Jones is a solid NFL quarterback. Going up against the Titans defense, I don't really like that either. But Nick, Tyrod had a good game last week. I understand, but I do think that Mac Jones is he's a good NFL quarterback, but again, in terms of fantasy football, he just doesn't really have that pizzazz. For the Titans, Ryan Tannehill is down to A.J. Brown, likely not playing in this game. Julio's not going to be there. They don't have Derrick Henry, obviously. This game seems disgusting for Ryan Tannehill. The Patriots defense is playing at another level right now. The Patriots defense looks amazing. So I fully expect Ryan Tannehill to struggle in this game because he doesn't even have like a safety valve like Derrick Henry maybe to dump the ball off. I understand that may not be the best analogy because Derrick Henry isn't like Christian McCaffrey, but as of recently, before he got hurt, he was catching more passes. He doesn't have A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, these safety valves out there. He's got Nick Westbrook, Ike to throw the ball to. So when it comes to the Titans, I'm just very worried about Ryan Tannehill in this game up against the Pats defense. Next up, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. But before we break down this game in terms of the quarterback position, I would like to ask if you have ended up enjoying thus far to please make sure to hit that like button down below as well as hitting that subscribe button. It would help me out a ton. So back on into it. Steelers at the Bengals. I like Joe Burrow in this game, but I don't love him. Joe Burrow last week, they destroy the Raiders. So on paper, kind of like Carson Wentz, where you would have thought on paper they just beat the fuck out of the Buffalo Bills, you would think that Carson Wentz had a solid game. Just like if you looked at the scoreboard for the Bengals versus the Las Vegas Raiders last week, you would have thought that Joe Burrow had an amazing game. He didn't in terms of fantasy football, but he has all of these wide receiver weapons. He's got T. Higgins. He's got Jamar Chase, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL right now. He's got Tyler Boyd. He has C.J. Uzomah, who, while hasn't done much as of recently, is still a very talented tight end. He has the running backs to dump the ball off, like Joe Mixon. So the Bengals offense is great. The Steelers defense hasn't been amazing this season. They're not like the steel curtain of a zillion years ago before I was born, but they're still a solid defense. So I think that Joe Burrow will be able to get it done, but not a guy that I'm very excited about on the week. Next up, we pivot to the Atlanta Falcons at the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this game fucking reeks through the screen. I talked about how I didn't love the Patriots game. This game seems even worse at the quarterback position. Matty Ice Baby starts off the season terrible. Matt Ryan looks like a shell of himself, and then a couple weeks into the season, he starts to catch fire. He starts to play solid, and then I'm thinking in my head, oh, maybe Matt Ryan's back, and he rattles off like 4 or 5 games in a row where he's a very usable, a very viable fantasy quarterback. And then recently, the last couple of games, things started to fall off the edge of the earth, especially last week up against the Patriots. That was not a defeat, like a close game. That was what I would describe as a clowning, a certified beatdown by the New England Patriots, and Matt Ryan could do nothing about it. He could do nothing about it. This week up against the Jaguars, you would think he could have an all-right game, right? Because the Jaguars' defense just isn't good. But I just don't trust Matt Ryan right now. Calvin Ridley will not be back for this game. They're really just throwing the ball to Kyle Pitts. They really just don't have great receiving options outside of Calvin Ridley. Obviously, they have Kyle Pitts, who's been all right this season. Matt Ryan, though, I'd rather just sit him down. The Jacksonville Jaguars, again, the Atlanta Falcons defense just got clowned by Mac Jones and the Patriots, but I don't expect the Jaguars and Urban Meyer to be able to do that. Trevor Lawrence has had an all right rookie season. Nothing special, right? Coming out of college, people are calling this guy the most special quarterback since Andrew Luck. All these things. And he's on the Jaguars, so, I'll give him a bit of, leniency with that. He hasn't looked amazing this year, just hasn't been a great fantasy quarterback. But I hope for next year and going forward, he is a lot better. But right now, Trevor Lawrence is best left on your bench. Next up, we got the LA Chargers at the Denver Broncos. We got Justin Herbert, the pervert, going up against Teddy Two Gloves. And for some reason, I'm feeling like this is a typical Chargers gonna charge type of game where they just somehow fuck it all up against the Denver Broncos. You would think this was going to be an absolute shellacking by the Chargers, right? You would think this would be an easy game. The Broncos haven't looked great as of recently, besides that huge win up against the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry's world. I just don't really love the Chargers in this game. Justin Herbert, the pervert, I think has a solid game. And it's not that I don't love the Chargers in this game. This game just screams to me that the Broncos are going to somehow win. But I will be playing Justin Herbert, the pervert. I play him every single game. He is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Mike Williams starting to catch fire last week. Maybe, just maybe, they can continue that trend here up against the Denver Broncos. Herbert does have a lot of weapons. Austin Eckler, obviously. They have Keenan Allen. They have Mike Williams. Jared Cook when he decides to play good. Donald Parham. They have a lot of wide receiver weapons out there. And they obviously have Austin Eckler, the running back, who's very talented at pass catching. So I think Justin Herbert should be just fine in this game. But again, something is just telling me that the Broncos are going to win this game. But I don't think it's really at the hands of Teddy Two Gloves. I do believe that's going to be a lot of running from the Denver Broncos. The LA Chargers defense is complete and utter dog shit up against the run. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if this was a huge Melvin Gordon revenge game week for the Denver Broncos. Javonte Williams as well. Just don't really like Teddy Bridgewater that much in this game. Next up, we move to the LA Rams at the Green Bay Packers. I think a lot of people have, if you could buy a team, well, technically I think you can technically own a portion of the Green Bay Packers, but if you could buy the Rams like they were a stock, people would have just sold after last week or after the week before that because they had to buy last week, because the Rams are on a short stint of being terrible. Not looking great defensively or offensively. People are saying that Odell Beckham Jr. put a fucking voodoo curse on the team, that they are fucked, that they're screwed, that they're not going to be able to do anything. And maybe that's true, because that would be funny in my opinion. But I think that the LA Rams bounce back up against the Packers. But Nick, the Packers defense has looked pretty solid recently up against the pass. And I do agree with that, but I do think that Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams bounce back big coming off of the bye. I expect Matthew Stafford to put up a very solid performance. Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the COVID toe. He just has a broken pinky toe, I think it is. One of his toes is messed up. He showed his feet on the camera like it was OnlyFans. Aaron Rodgers, he'll be just fine in this game. I expect him to play well, even with the fucked up toe. Next up, we move to the Vikings at the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm calling Jimmy Garoppolo a start, but he is basically where you are reaching down into the deep depths, the bottom of the barrel to start a quarterback. Now, does that mean that I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a shit quarterback? No, but what I do know about the 49ers is that they like to run the ball gently down the stream, and I also know that Jimmy Garoppolo isn't necessarily a quarterback that's just going to take over a game. But going up against the Minnesota Vikings, who have looked really good as of recently, this could be a high-scoring, back-and-forth, tit-for-tat game. So I do like Jimmy Guap, Jimmy G-Spot, Jimmy Pornstar in this game. Mr. You Like That Kirk Cousins has looked so good as of recently. Going up against the 49ers defense, some people may be a little bit nervous. Oh, the 49ers defense has looked a little bit better recently. I don't give a damn. Fire up Kirk Cousins in this matchup again. I do think this could be a very high-scoring game. Next up, we move to the Cleveland Browns at the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, I'm pretty sure, had a case of the shits last week. Typical Lamar Jackson. This dude's immune system is down tremendous. He's always sick. Now, maybe I shouldn't be saying that because I'm slightly still sick right now, but I'm not sick multiple times every single season. But hey, Lamar Jackson makes millions of dollars, and I make some money talking about football on the internet. So who's really winning? The answer is Lamar Jackson. But I will tell you that while he might have more money than me, I do have a better immune system than Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, though, while he may have been sick last week, he's also sick nasty on the field, hitting the DBs with the jukes. A lot of people make fun of Lamar Jackson for being a running back, but I think he looks great passing up against the Cleveland Browns in this game. I would be hard-pressed to ever sit down Lamar Jackson. The guy could have he could have the flu like Michael Jordan in that game, and if he played, I'd believe in him. I love Lamar Jackson this week in a division rivalry matchup up against the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield has been battling with injury all season. He's just also battling the fact that he hasn't looked good all year. Baker is one of those quarterbacks that I think is a pretty alright NFL quarterback, just like Mac Jones. Maybe that's selling Mac Jones short based upon how he's looked compared to Baker Mayfield, but I think they're both good NFL quarterbacks, but it just doesn't transition to fantasy football, especially since the Cleveland Browns' MO is just to run the ball 7 million times. That does not impact positively towards Baker Mayfield. Next up, we got the final game here, Monday Night Football between the Seattle Seahawks at the Washington Football Team, and I will reluctantly tell you to start Russell Wilson. I am not confident in this at all. It is very clear that Russell Wilson is not 100% healthy. It is very clear that the man came back too early. He has not scored above 10 fantasy points, at least based upon the scoring settings of my league, since he returned. Now, could that all change? Could things be all better up against the Washington Football Team, whose defense against the pass sucks complete and utter donkey cock? Yes, but do I believe in it 100%? Would I stand up here or sit down in my chair and proclaim that you must start Russell Wilson? No. I'm far from that. I think that in a lot of scenarios, you probably have a better quarterback than Russell Wilson on your bench, so I would sit him this week until we see him play better. Once he plays better, hallelujah. I'm going to come here and tell you to play him every single week and be excited about it, but right now, I'm just not that excited about it. On the other side of the ball, we got Taylor Heinicke, quarterback of the Washington football team. The Seattle defense is far from that 12th man of the past. They are far from an excellent defense, and I think that Taylor Heinicke could have an amazing showing here up against the Seattle Seahawks defense, so I'm certainly going to be starting him. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. I would appreciate it a ton. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day, and as always, goodbye!